What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Ray Talks Live. From the description that I put for this episode, I want to be real. And if you've been following my podcast, you know a lot of my episodes deal with education, especially in high school. And, I talk about the shortcomings of students and, sometimes their issues, their problems, not trying to do anything, their laziness. I talk about how parents are inactive, they're not taking their part, they're not doing their part in participating in their child's education. But I do know I have at times talked about the shortcomings of my fellow coworkers, educators. And I'm going to get real deep and personal and honest. I do feel that even in my high school, there are some terrible teachers. And I know you shouldn't badmouth none of your coworkers. And even in a sense, I do to go to that level a little bit at times because it is frustrating when you go to your job, you do what you're supposed to do, you put the grades in, you're fair to the students, you try to show them respect, you give them everything that you can give, and you still got these couple of teachers, whether they're new, veteran, or career transient path teachers, and it's just so difficult and so hard. And I'm going to use an example of actually real timing. At my school, I'm part of the union. I'm the number two building steward. So if a teacher or a security guard or any faculty member at the school, for whatever reason gets in trouble, if they need me to go in and help represent them from the union point of view at the school, I do that. And I do hear about some of the faults, some of the issues that administration has with teachers. And we had a faculty meeting on yesterday, April 19th. The principal kind of got a little personal, and you kind of knew something was up because just by the way how he spoke, what he was talking about, he was speaking, reading between the lines, and you knew something was up because he took his glasses off before he spoke, and you could tell. And he stopped just short of saying what he really probably wanted to say. And I sort of knew that it dealt already with some dealing with a teacher, teachers not doing what they're supposed to do. That's always expected. But the fact that, the situation after I found out really what it was, it dealt with a student whose parent felt like the grades they were getting was not reflective of the type of work that their child is capable of. And I get it, parents should defend their children, just like I would do the same thing for my three kids as well. And I have done it a few times, especially for my oldest. The crazy thing was that when I get a parent email, I'll respond to you. I may not respond to it right away first thing in the morning. Maybe a little later on in the morning, I'll respond to you, or at least by that day. I'm going to respond to your email. But the crazy thing was that the parent of the child works in the school system. And the crazy thing is, the parent works at the middle school that's right across the street from the senior high. And so the biggest issue was over the simple fact that the child is telling the parent, hey, I'm doing my work. And a lot of times I already said, kids will lie to protect themselves. And if you have kids or you work with children, you know that. But at sometimes there's proof that can be done. And so I'm going to assume the student was taking pictures of their work. So the parent was checking the grade book. The parent sees the assignments listed in the grade book. But for whatever reason, the child's grade was not changing. And so when the parent went back and looked in the grade book after like maybe 2 weeks later, this teacher's going in deleting the assignments out the grade book. And I'm saying to myself, like, wow, are you really that stupid? And you just give a bad rap to teachers. You give a bad rap, a bad name to educators who love the profession, who go in there and give their all. And you got this, like you are simply going to sit up here, put three, four, five, whatever number of assignments in the grade book, listed them. But at the end of the day, you don't grade the students' work. You delete it out the grade book. And so this parent screenshots them, comes to school, has the meeting, still not happy, even though the principal's saying, I'm going to deal with it. When you work in the school system, you know the BS, or you give it some time for something to be done. Parent took this to the region superintendent, and that's where we at the moment. But my thing is, why would you do this? And the sad thing is that the teacher, since I've been teaching seniors for the past 6 years now. This teacher's name is always, I mean, they don't even throw this teacher name under the bus. I mean, like they dig a hole and bury this teacher into hell, talking about how bad this teacher is as a teacher, not so much as a person. But it just makes you think, like, how evil are you? How bad are you? You got kids doing this work. You don't even want to grade it, and then you just put in the grade, but it look like you give them grades, but then you just deleted out of grade book. Like, come on, like really? And it's so frustrating. When you see the teachers also part of the little crew that kids who don't do work for 7, 8 weeks all of a sudden go to them, and then you do 1, 2 assignments, and all of a sudden you get an A, and you're saying to yourself, how do you have an A when you have about 10, 15, 20 absences in the grade book? How are you as a teacher going to justify giving a kid an A when that kid hasn't even been in your classroom for almost the majority of your class meets? And then you have some of the teachers who do extra credit, let kids make it work, and I'm like, no, it don't work like that. You have to teach these kids responsibilities. Yes, some are not getting the home training like they should, but like I say, this episode is not about the parents and it's not about the kids. It's about some of the bad apples in the education field that are causing the issues, causing the problems that makes educators like myself who go to work, work hard, put grades into the grade book, let kids know where they stand from day one, and this is what you do. Like I've always told my students from day one, you cannot ever question where you are in terms of your grades in my class. I make sure that if I give an assignment on a Monday, I make sure at least by Wednesday or Thursday that week your grade has been posted. So there is no, oh, I didn't know I was failing. No, you knew you was failing since the second, third week of the grading period. So all of a sudden when you get that failure notice the seventh week or eighth week, there's no surprise. There's no shock and all like, oh, I didn't know I was failing. And it's crazy. And the crazy thing is, as a teacher, you can see any kid's grade in your school as long as you have either their first or last name or their student ID. You can look them up, but at the same time, you can see every teacher's grade book in the school. And you kind of look at it sometimes and I say, okay, why is this kid failing my class? Let me look at to see what their other grades look like. Yeah, if you got A's, if you got some F's, I'm sorry, if you have F's, D's, maybe one, two C's somewhere, he said, okay, yeah, I know I'm not the only one. But when I'm seeing you got an A and I'm not gonna just throw the elective classes down, but maybe you got an A in a core class, and I'm saying so like how you got in the grade book. You look, the teacher done had 10 assignments, only graded two of them with a grade, but the rest of them because the kid didn't turn it in, they leave it blank. That's not accurate, and that's why I always tell students, you guys got to learn at some point. Your parents got to come in and fight for you, but at the same time, y'all got to do your part. You got to do your part. If you know you're doing right, you got to tell your mom, dad, you got to go in there and fight. And you got to, unfortunately, you got to screenshot. Because, I mean, how are you saying you really teaching kids when you're doing them dirty? And just like I always hate when I see students saying they failing and then all of a sudden they're trying to make up work, but then they'll say like, "Oh, I had an A 3/4 of the grading period," and all of a sudden they got an F. Like, what happened? Come on, we got to do better. And it's like we got to start weeding out these bad educators, whether they're new educators into the system, they can be people who are coming from another career who don't understand this yet, or sometimes they could be veterans who are burnt out and just don't care. Listen, like I always say, if you are burnt out from a job, either take the day off from work, take a year off, or go find a new career. Because if you think about it, a teacher is standing in front of your child 8 hours of the day for the most part. And of course, if it's middle school, high school, depending on their block schedule, whatever, it could be maybe an hour to an hour and a half, or maybe 2 hours, whatever. Okay, but you're talking about for that hour, hour and a half, or even a whole day if it's an elementary school teacher. If that teacher is terrible, can you imagine the garbage and the foolishness and the just unrealistic thoughts that is being pumped into that kid's head? And then you're wondering why your child can't do it. And I always question like, how are students, particularly seniors, when you're writing something for me, it's terrible. But then if I look at your English class, your reading class, your or ELA as they want to call it now, you got an A, and I'm saying like, how you got an A? You can't even write a proper sentence. You have misspellings. Your grammar doesn't make sense. But how are you sitting up here with an A? And it's just it makes you wonder. And as I said before, there are a lot of people in education who have degrees, but trust me, they ain't smart. Trust me. And parents have got to be more. They got to be more hands on in knowing who is their child's teacher. A teacher's certification is public records here in the state of Florida, just like I imagine it might be elsewhere across this country. I know for my children, I look up my children's teacher's certification. I want to make sure you are certified in terms of what you're doing, what you're teaching. And if I can't find you in the FDLE website, public search, I'm questioning, hey, is this teacher certified? I need to know. Because if the teacher is teaching out of field, you're supposed to notify their parents so that they know that the teacher standing in front of them for this class is not certified in that subject area. That's how it's done in high school and even middle school. But we got to do something about these bad teachers. And I mean, I'm not trying to vent, but seriously, what are we doing? And this is why educators are still looked down upon. This is why people don't really have the highest respect for educators. People appreciate the ones who do the work, and they can't stand the rest. And as I always say, students know what teachers in their school care about them, love them, want them to do the best in life, and they know the ones who are just there just to be there. Because one thing I say, you don't become an educator for the paycheck. That's number one. But some of these teachers who don't want to do it right way and just doing kids nasty, I get it. This new generation, they're all caught up in social media. Not the brightest in the books. COVID over the past 2 years has messed up the learning for a lot of kids, and I get all that. But at the same time, you got to treat these students as if you would want someone to treat your own child if they were a student in their classes. And I don't know what else to go about it, but I just think it's just dead wrong that we have educators who don't love what they're doing and they're just messing up kids. And you got to think, as I said, if you got that bad teacher, especially a couple of them, in front of your child, just imagine the 8 hours that they're standing in front of your child or the hour and a half they're standing in that class in front of them. Just imagine what's being taught or imagine what's being said or imagine how they're being talked to or how they're being treated. You know, it we got to do better. And bad teachers got to go. And it's actually a lot costly to future generations when they're still there versus when you actually have a great teacher. Parents gotta you have to fight, but more important, you gotta make sure you fight for your kids, but you gotta make sure you do it the right way. And I give props to this parent. How dare the teacher, you know, put assignments in the grade book, then all of a sudden delete it. I know for me, throughout the course of an entire school year, I may delete one or two assignments the entire year. And that's only because maybe there was testing during the week or it's a whole lot of other stuff happened where the assignment I originally want to do just couldn't do it. Or basically I had where a lot of kids just didn't do it. And is it worth putting a Z in it or else for them? You know what? No. I'm just going to delete the assignment because why? There's plenty. There's 8, 9, 10, 12 assignments in the grade book. No big deal. We got to do better. And if you follow this podcast, I want to hear your points. I'm going to put this up on social media. If you have came across a bad teacher, what was the experiences that either you had as a kid back in the day or your own child or children have experienced now or maybe over the last few years of coming across a bad teacher? I would love to hear your points of view. So definitely follow me on social media and on Facebook and on Twitter at Ray Talks Live. You can also follow me on Instagram at RayTalks_live. And you can also send me an email at raytalkslive@gmail.com. And with that, I am out.